The Princess Who Became a King, from African Princess: The Amazing Lives of Africa's Royal Women, by Joyce Hayson. Essential question: what was life like in ancient Egypt? This limestone bust of Hatshepsut, wearing a pharaoh's beard, was once part of an 18-foot statue that stood in the temple at Deir el-Bahri, where her tomb was housed. On a hot day in 1922, there was a great excitement at a dig site in what had once been the Egyptian city of Thebes. The archaeologists had stumbled upon a pit containing hundreds of pieces of ancient granite statues. Some of the pieces were as small as any gravel. Others were so huge that a crane was needed to lift them. The head archaeologist Herbert E. Winlock said later that putting the fragments together was like working on 100 jigsaw puzzles, each one with pieces missing. The statues were of a pharaoh wearing the traditional kilt and crown, as well as the beard of an Egyptian ruler, but the pharaoh's face was that of a woman. On some of the broken columns, the dig team found the name Hatshepsut written in hieroglyphs. Was this the same Hatshepsut who had reigned over Egypt around 1479-1457? Herbert Winlock knew that her empty burial tomb had been found a few years earlier at Deir el-Bahri, but that her mummy had yet to be discovered. If this was the same Hatshepsut, he wondered why had so many statues of her been destroyed. As the archaeologists studied and pondered, the story of an extraordinary woman began to emerge after thousands of years of silence. This set of Egyptian hieroglyphs represents the pharaoh Hatshepsut. The symbols are enclosed in an oval called a cartouche. Statues of Hatshepsut stand at her mortuary temple in Deir el-Bahri. It was traditional to show a deceased pharaoh holding a shepherd's crook and flail, a rod with 3 strands of beads attached. These objects were symbols of a pharaoh's power and responsibilities. The crowds on the banks of the river cheered wildly as the gilded royal barge came into view. Standing next to the pharaoh was a lovely young girl in white linen robes, his eldest daughter, the royal princess Hatshepsut. For Pharaoh Thutmose I, these trips along the Nile from Thebes to Memphis gave him an opportunity to inspect his kingdom and see his people. We can imagine him pointing out to his daughter the great monuments and temples, teaching her about the world they live in. With Hatshepsut's mother, the royal wife, Amos, and other members of the royal family, they would stay in temporary palaces called the mooring places of Pharaoh. The Nile River and its fertile valley helped develop farming in Egypt. Along the Nile grew the royal cities of Memphis in the north of Egypt and Thebes in the south. Throughout her childhood, Hatshepsut had a very close relationship with her father. She was the only surviving child of Amos, Sadly, with the exception of Hatshepsut's half-brother Tutmosis II, all of the pharaoh's other children had died. Hatshepsut and Tutmosis II, who would someday marry and rule Egypt together, must have been a great comfort to the pharaoh. Egyptian royalty married close family members in order to keep the royal blood pure and to keep wealth and power within the ruling family. Hatshepsut's carefree days and nights spent in the palace at Thebes ended when she became a teenager. Her beloved father died, and her life changed completely. Historians are not certain whether Hatshepsut was older or younger than Tutmosis II, but either way, she could not become the new pharaoh because she was a woman. Pharaohs were not only supreme rulers, they were also divine. Their right to rule came directly from the gods. The pharaoh was the head of all the priests, a very powerful group of men, and was the only person who was allowed to communicate directly with the gods. Next in line to be the new pharaoh was Hatshepsut's half-brother, Tutmosis II. Princess Hatshepsut became his royal wife. The goddess Mut, shown here, was known as Mother of the Gods. Mut's crown often depicted a vulture, which was revered as a fierce protector of its young. Ancient Egyptians worshipped the god Amun as the king of all gods. Hatshepsut probably accepted her marriage to Tutmosis II as her duty. If she refused to marry him, the Theban royal family would be weakened and other people would try to claim the throne. She was only 14 or 15 years old when she married, but like her father, Hatshepsut had a deep sense of responsibility. Childhood things were put aside, and she gracefully stepped into her role as the king's great wife. Although she preferred the title of God's wife of Amun. The title of God's wife of Amun was politically important as it gave Hatshepsut influence over the powerful priests and allowed the royal family to control the vast wealth and property of the Amun temples. In the years that followed her marriage, the young queen had a daughter, Neferure, who she loved very much. As well as being a mother, Hatshepsut seems to have been a supportive queen and wife. She might even have shared power with her husband. This statue depicts Hatshepsut's daughter, Neferure, carried by her tutor, Senenmut. Senenmut served as the trusted advisor during Hatshepsut's reign. Analyze the text, conclusions and generalizations. What inference can you make to determine why Hatshepsut crowned herself as pharaoh? What text evidence supports your conclusions? Almost every pharaoh from the 16th century BCE to 30 BCE added buildings, walls, or monuments to the Karnak temple complex, a religious site at Thebes. Unfortunately, after a short reign of 3 years, Tutmosis II died, and his son by a lesser wife, Tutmosis III, became the new pharaoh. There was one serious problem. He was a small child. Hatshepsut was appointed queen regent. This was not an unusual situation. In the past, Egyptian queens had acted as regents, governing for their young sons or other male relatives. But Hatshepsut was different. She had learned how to rule from her father and had taken on some of her husband's royal duties. For her, it must have seemed as though the gods had intervened in her life. She was finally going to be given a chance to rule on her own, at least until the young pharaoh was old enough to govern. Although she was only 17 or 18 years old when her husband died, Hatshepsut was a successful ruler. She knew from her years at court how to deal with the important priests and nobles who helped run the country. Maybe it was a sign of things to come, but she had two obelisks built while she was queen regent. When these massive columns were completed 7 years later, she did something that had never been done before. Hatshepsut had herself crowned as pharaoh. Hatshepsut's obelisks, towering almost 100 feet into the sky, one of two massive granite obelisks that Hatshepsut erected at the temple of Amun in Karnak, still stands beside one built by her father. They were carved without any iron tools, and no one knows for certain how the Egyptians managed to raise them. Egyptian obelisks have been the model for many other structures, including the Washington Monument, which is almost 6 times taller than Hatshepsut's obelisk. Hatshepsut became one of only a few female pharaohs to rule Egypt in 3,000 years of history. She must have been confident, smart, and fearless to take such a bold step. She also must have had supporters among the powerful nobles and priests at court. Hatshepsut had obviously earned their respect and confidence. This would not have been an easy thing to do. She would have had to convince them that a female pharaoh would not anger the gods and bring terrible hardship to Egyptian people. Hatshepsut's reign did not bring down the fury of the gods. Historians believed she ruled for 15 years, bringing peace and prosperity to her people. As a pharaoh, she is best known for her monuments at Karnak and Deir el-Bahri. Hatshepsut was a builder. From the time she sat at her father's side gazing at the pyramids of Giza or visiting the temple complex at Karnak, she understood the importance of building monuments and temples to the gods. For the ancient Egyptians, life was a preparation for death, leading to eternal life in heaven. However, the Egyptians did not want to be forgotten on earth. They left grand monuments behind so that they would be remembered forever. The 3 pyramids of Giza are located near the modern capital of Cairo. They were built 7 to 10 centuries before Hatshepsut's reign to house the mummies of Egyptian rulers. Hatshepsut understood the importance of building strong trade relationships with other countries. She sent a mission to the fabled land of Punt, thought to be located in present-day Ethiopia or Somalia. The expedition returned from Punt with valuable goods such as gold, ebony, ivory, and myrrh trees used for making incense. Hatshepsut was so proud of the successful mission that she had the entire story of the voyage carved on the walls of her mortuary temple. This carving from Hatshepsut's temple shows the voyage to Punt. The land of Punt may have been located in one of several places of the Red Sea or on the Arabian Sea, south of the Horn of Africa. Hatshepsut's splendid mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri. Hatshepsut asked her loyal and trusted advisor Senenmut to plan and build her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri. She named it Djeser Djeseru, meaning Holy of Holies, nestled near her father's burial tomb. It was an elegant building. It was also very different from other styles of architecture at that time, just as Hatshepsut was so different from other women. Analyze the text. Analyze historical characters. What examples and anecdotes does the author give to introduce and describe Hatshepsut on pages 561-563? Hatshepsut may have been in her 40s when she died, an old woman in those days. For years, scholars believed that Thutmose III was so angry at his aunt for calling herself pharaoh that he knocked down her statues. By the time Hatshepsut spent training her nephew to become a successful ruler, suggests that she was a loving woman, not a power-hungry one, and Hatshepsut's monuments were destroyed 20 years after her death. If Thutmose III had been angry with Hatshepsut, why did he wait so long to erase her memory? And why didn't he destroy the images and statues that showed her as a princess and a queen? Perhaps Thutmose III was having political problems and his throne was threatened. Maybe he destroyed anything that depicted Hatshepsut as pharaoh in order to show that there was a direct line of kings from Thutmose I and II to himself, with no Hatshepsut in between. We will probably never know who destroyed her statues or why. What we do know is that Pharaoh Hatshepsut can now take her place among the great kings and builders of Egypt. The mortuary at Deir el-Bahri honors both Hatshepsut and the goddess Hathor. Shown here, ceremonial occasions celebrated Hathor as a joyful, loving protector of women. Analyze the text. Cause and effect. What effects did Hatshepsut's reign have on Egypt's history? How do these effects help you better understand Hatshepsut's importance in history?